Hello and welcome to ISC2 Insights. I'm Chris Green. Joining me today to talk about the ISC2 Code of Professional Conduct are Rick Gamache, CISSP, Rachel Williams, and James McQuiggan, CISSP. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So my first question is, please tell us a little bit more about the Code of Professional Conduct and the project and why it matters.
So this Code of Professional Conduct is one of ISC2's strategic initiatives. It's been in place and working on it for over a year now. It's important because it's not just being a cybersecurity professional. It's not just showing up and knowing the technical competencies behind what you do, but it's also how you show up, the conduct behind it, and the ethical decision-making you do in your day-to-day.
Okay. And how does this project align with ISC2's strategic priorities right now?
Well, you think when you're looking at the bigger picture from a strategic perspective, it's part of the cornerstone of professionalizing the profession, right? So when we're all working from the same sheet of music, if you will, in terms of how we conduct ourselves in a day-to-day business as usual basis, in an environment where nothing's business as usual, it's really important to have a codified rules of engagement. And we are behaving in ways that are consistent, that holds each other accountable. So when you look at it, how does it fit into the strategy? It's a real foundation of how we practice cybersecurity.
Yeah. Now, I know this is going to be a controversial question, but why do we need a code of professional conduct? Why are we not just happy with cybersecurity professionals just doing what needs to be done to get the job completed?
As a member, I look at it as it's our oath to the industry, to society, to make sure that we're acting honorably, justly, the best interest of our profession. For me also, it's something that I share with my students. As a part-time university professor, one of the first things we talk about is ethics and morals, because what we're learning in cybersecurity, we're learning how the bad guys work. And we have to make sure that we're acting for the right reasons, we're acting honorably and justly in those cases, because otherwise we end up putting a bad mark on us as cybersecurity professionals. And so by having this code of conduct, taking it when you earn your certification, brings you right into the fold and continue, hopefully, of them already acting professionally and honorably.
Another thing we're looking to do too is to broaden the scope. So we have our code of ethics, that James talks about, and with the code of professional conduct, we're looking for it to be a guidepost for all professionals, whether they're an ISC2 member or not, with practical guidelines and topics that resonate with them, in their day-to-day.
And I think to amplify what both have said, we have to look at cybersecurity through the lens of what it really means to be a practitioner. There's a lot of decision-making that happens in the cybersecurity realm, if you will, that is controversial in of itself, right? If you're an offensive practitioner and you're working offensively, the defense and offense should still have the same guiding principles in terms of what we accept as conduct and how we hold ourselves accountable as a profession. We have a lot of leadership that around us that doesn't necessarily live in the world of cybersecurity. So the ability for all of us to communicate back upward and even downward why we do something within the context of values and what's important to us as professionals and why it matters, I think is where the code really shines, to be honest with you.
And I think this is an area worthy of more discussion because, and please, correct me if you disagree, but you can argue that cybersecurity is ultimately two sides of the same coin. And there are legitimate things that we do as cybersecurity professionals, things like penetration testing, other aspects of ethical hacking, in order to understand the threats that face our organizations so that we can deal with them. But, they are getting close to that fine line between, defensive and offensive cybersecurity for good and the work of the cybersecurity criminals, many of whom are actually using the same technologies at the end of the day, just for nefarious reasons. So, arguably the role of any kind of ethical construct is really to actually create a much more defined line between right and wrong. Because it is very easy, arguably, to fall the wrong side of the line, often with the best of intentions.
So giving people kind of straight guidance and guidelines on what that looks like, and what they would encounter in their day in various areas of practice. So things like, privilege, use of privilege, things like emerging technologies, securing emerging technologies, things like security decision making with those leaders that have to, make decisions about risk, and how do you communicate that up, right? All of those little decisions and communication points during your day matter to these big picture kind of topics we're talking about. So we're looking to provide, again, basic guidance in the code, and then accompanying materials like decision-making tree, like tips and do's and don'ts in particular areas, to help bring it to life and make it more than just a piece of paper, because it's got to be more than a piece of paper.
Yeah, and it has to be an evolving one as well.
Yep.
I mean, the cybersecurity world is a rapidly changing landscape, arguably now more than ever. And with it, the ethical challenges are evolving at an equally rapid rate.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right, go ahead.
especially when, we've seen technology and the threats and everything, especially now with AI changing so much. It's extremely helpful and beneficial for us as members to have those the guardrails that can guide us and help us out when it comes to the different, either decisions or work that we're doing. I know for me, we've learned on the offensive side, how to do those pen tests, how to gain access inside of organizations, but we need to keep ourselves in check. And this is certainly one way from the code of conduct, but also to educate and pass that along to all the new security professionals coming in, whether they're CCs or CISSPs. And so having that guidance goes a long way in keeping our integrity as security professionals.
That's how things go sideways and go wrong. Even with great intent, if you don't have a common ethical approach to what you're trying to do, like sandboxing, viruses that you're playing with, those kinds of things, the good hygiene that you have to practice every day from a BAU or business as usual perspective, I think really matters. So you want to make the code of professional conduct something that's both malleable, but yet grounded in thought and ethical behavior we can all agree on. I think that's really critical.
Now, to bring this back to ISC2 for a moment, we've had very clearly defined ethical canons for a long time. How does this code of conduct take that forward? I mean, how are we building on our ethical foundations with this new code?
Yep. So the canons were the foundation, for this document, and that'll stay as it is. It's a guiding, expectation for members. The code expands and gives more specific, establishes, again, things like emerging technologies, confidentiality. Also included was important competence and staying on top of, your training as a professional, right? So larger topics that expand on the tenets of that document.
Okay. Now, how do you hope that this code of conduct is going to support our members, the wider cybersecurity profession, and how do you think that they're going to use it?
I think, right out of the gate, it's certainly something that goes beyond just the certification. It's to be integrated in their way of working and their way of thinking with regards to security, again, with communicating up. But I think it's going to essentially make things a lot easier and trying to understand, okay, where those guardrails are overall with regards to being able to conduct ourselves professionally within the industry. And as the CISSP has always been the gold standard, this new code of conduct, professional conduct, will certainly be that gold standard for hopefully not only ISC2 members, but the industry overall.
I think the real, for me, if I'm a member myself, I'm a CISSP, right? So I look at it and I say to myself, how great would it have been 10 years ago to be able to go to a professional above me or a supervisor and say, look, we shouldn't be doing this, and here's why. Here's the body of thought that Rachel and team have brought together to deliver the code of professional conduct. Here's a body of thought with many diverse opinions on how we should approach something ethically within our profession. Goes a long way. Because at the very least, armed with those tools, you can go to the supervisors or your leadership that may be asking you to do something that you don't necessarily agree with. It gives you the backup to say, look, we know that this can be a challenge. Here's an ethical dilemma that you're putting me in, and here's some of the information as to why this is a challenge for me professionally.
Okay. And what can members expect to see in terms of the outputs of this project, now, and what's the future plan for the code for professional conduct?
Yep. So it will be approved by the board of directors. So we've are finishing up some additional feedback. Feedback's been incredibly important for this project. Our code task force has helped lead in producing and getting feedback. It'll be approved. And then we'll have a release. And in addition to the code, our website has been updated, and there will be additional tools, again, tips, guidelines that align with each of the topic areas, training, and additional videos and assets like that. So full package, and moving forward, it's only just getting started. So focusing on awareness really this year, and building into what other elements, enforcement and advisory is really important as well.
Okay. I realize it's early days, but do we know yet, do we have a feeling how frequently we expect the code to change, evolve, get updates, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it will be. That's really important, Chris, right? That we keep it fresh, and it's a living document. So I would say regularly, and at minimum annually would be my expectation. So yeah, for sure.
Okay. So thank you all for joining us. I'm sure everyone's looking forward to seeing the code when it's approved and published, and no doubt giving us feedback on it going forward.
Yep. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
That's everything for today. As always, you can catch up with more of our content at isc2.org/ISC2 Insights. Thank you very much, and goodbye.